Hey everybody, this video is going to go over chemical reactivity and the trend for that. So we're going to pick up on the PowerPoint here. So reactivity itself is the ability to basically react with other elements and other atoms based on their number of valence electrons, based on how attractive the valence electrons are to the nucleus and things of that sort. Because everything, like we've said before, everything is trying to get a stable electron configuration, which is 8 valence electrons. And so these atoms gain, lose, and share electrons based on their desire to get a stable electron configuration. So when we're talking about reactivity, we're going to see a difference in the trend based on if we're talking about a metal or if we're talking about a non-metal. So the trend for reactivity for metals is it's going to increase as we go down the group for metals, and it's going to increase going to the left, whoopsie, for your metals. So what I want you to remember is that all metals are losers. Yep, I said it. All metals are losers. And so when we're talking about the metals losing their valence electrons, we want to think about the fact that it is easier for these valence electrons to get lost and for them to go to another nearby atom if the attraction between the valence electrons and the nucleus is very weak. And it just so happens that this corner on your periodic table has a weak attraction because there's a low Zeph and there's a high number of energy levels, high shielding. When we're looking at the nonmetals though, the nonmetals are going to increase going to the right, and I cannot draw today, and increase going up the periodic table, because remember, the nonmetals are non-losers. The nonmetals are trying to gain electrons. And so we think about the fact that if they're trying to gain electrons, it's easier for the atom to gain electrons when the attraction between the outer energy level and the nucleus is high. And it just so happens that this corner up here has a really strong attraction because you have few valence electrons as you move up the group, and as you move right across the period, you have a higher Zeph because of the increased protons. So the next couple of slides just basically put into words what I was just talking about. So when we're talking about metals and the reactivity of metals, and it increases as we go down and to the left on the periodic table, it is following that particular trend because the metals are losers, because they're trying to lose their valence electrons in order to reach a stable electron configuration. And so as we move left across the period, we're going to see a decrease in Zeph, because as you move left across the period, there are fewer numbers of protons in the nucleus. It's going to increase as you go down the group because there's increased shielding. We have more energy levels as we move down the group, and those valence electrons are getting further and further and further apart from the nucleus. So when we have a combination between a low Zeph and a high shielding, we're going to have a weak attraction. So which metal then would be the most reactive metal? It's going to be francium, because francium has the lowest Zeph and it has the highest shielding. It has the most energy levels. The reactivity of the nonmetals is going to be opposite. The nonmetals is going to increase as we move up and to the right. And so the nonmetals, remember, it's going to follow this trend because the nonmetals gain electrons. They're trying to gain electrons to reach that stable electron configuration. They have high numbers of valence electrons, they have high electronegativities, and they're going to attract electrons towards their nuclei. And as we move right across the period, remember, we're going to be adding protons into that nucleus without changing the inner electrons, and so we're increasing the Zeph as we move to the right. As we move up the group, we have decreased shielding because we have fewer energy levels and fewer inner electrons, core electrons, that are going to block that attractive pull between the nucleus and the valence electrons. So the greater Zeph, moving to the right, and the lower shielding is going to give us a really strong attraction as we move in that direction up and to the right. Now, The most reactive nonmetal then is not going to be helium or neon because those are your noble gases. And as we know, noble gases are, for the most part, inert. They don't react. So the nonmetal that has the most reactivity is going to be fluorine because it has the greatest depth and the lowest shielding of all the nonmetals that do react. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions about reactivity.